Hello everyone, welcome back to JP's Budget Collecting and our weekly look back at the CBSI Hot Top 10 from 6 months ago. This week we're looking back at the Hot Top 10 from April 5th, 2019, and I'm recording this on October 3rd, 2019. As always, the dates are just so you know when this information is most relevant. This week's list is got a few true kind of keys on it, got some hot books of the moment, got a little bit of spec news kind of thing. So with that, let's get into this week's list. And remember, this is always just about trying to help us make better decisions about hot books and showing us the benefits of patience sometimes when chasing these books. So first up at number 10 is Uncle Scrooge, number 43, the Matura 1 in 10 variant. This is just kind of a cool Uncle Scrooge cover. This is a relatively low print book. It's a Disney book. Disney characters are usually pretty, have their own kind of audience. It's very dedicated, very loyal. This book had actually hit the list a few weeks ago. It's back. Clear up to $25 to $30 at this point. Basically, now this book is not a lot of them out there, but it's the one recent sale went for $15. Generally, people asking $15 to $20. So it's still going for more than that 1 in 10 ratio at $15 to $20. I couldn't find any slab sales and no slabs listed on this particular book. So just kind of a fun cover that, Disney collectors were after back in the spring, and it still has a little bit of value. And number 9 on the list is kind of one of those true keys. This is Avengers 196, the first Taskmaster. If you remember last week, that first appearance of the Ultimate Taskmaster hit the list. Well, people have moved on. A week later, people have moved on and were on the real Taskmaster first appearance. Back then, it was hitting all-time highs. At 96 hit an all-time high of 400 plus. 98s were hitting all-time highs of 1,000 plus. And this book has not slowed down at all as we've gotten closer to the movie, to that Black Widow movie in which Taskmaster is going to appear. 9/8s are now mostly going for around $1,300 compared to that $1,000 new high back in April. And the most recent one actually basically set a new record and went to $1,600. So this one might be back on the list here anytime soon as well. So that is first Taskmaster number 1. 9/6s that were going for around $400 as a new high are still kind of going in that same range of $300 to $450 kind of range. A lot of variation in the sales on 9/6s, as low as $300, as high as $475, but they're kind of in that $400 range where they were back in the spring. Raw copies of this book will basically run you $50 to $75, depending on condition, maybe a little more if it's a really nice copy, maybe a little less if it's a little beat up, but that $50 to $75 seems to be where most of the sales are. Asking prices for this book right now, they're asking $1,500 or $1,475 is the 198 listed is what they're asking, and generally 9/6s they're asking around $550, so a little higher than that range that they've been going for. But that is first Taskmaster Avengers 196. Next up is Akira number 1, and this book hit the list because there was news that Leonardo DiCaprio was attached to a movie adaptation of this. And so this book jumped to $50 to $60 back in the spring. It has not held that. It's one of those things, option news, and even an attachment of an actor, but there's been no follow through on this actually happening anytime soon, no timeline. So now it's a $10 to $20 book. Most people are actually asking about 25 plus for it. There haven't been a ton of sales, and there's not a ton of them listed, but they are out there. 9/8s typically have been going in that $200 to $300 range, but currently there's not a 9/8 listed except for one, and it's listed for $1,140. So as always, they can ask whatever they want. You don't have to pay it. Do your research, and this is clearly more of a $200 to $300 book for a 9.8, not an $1,100 book. But that is Akira number 1, number 8 on our list. And number 7 on our list is another one of these kind of true keys, and this is Marvel Special Edition number 15, the first appearance of Shang-Chi. And again, this had to do with movie news and that Marvel was making a Shang-Chi movie. There's been more news about that movie. Back then, it was hitting all-time highs. 9.6s hit 1,900. 9.4s were hitting 750. So now this book is basically 9.6s are still going in that 1,700 to 2,000 range for the most part. Although one recent sale actually went for 2,800. But they're still mostly in that range around where they were back in the spring. 9.4s are still going for around or up to about $1,000 to $1,000 to $1,100. Interestingly enough, a 9.2 is going to cost you basically $950 to $1,050. So they're almost identical in what they're going for in terms of sales. 9.4s did actually hit a peak back in July of 1,500, but have come back a little bit down closer to that 1,000 to 1,100 range. Currently, raw copies will run you anywhere between $100 and $350, depending on the grade of that raw copy. Most of the listings are 100 plus, even for fairly rough copies. Really nice copies, you're looking at 200 plus. The one listed 9.4 on eBay right now, there's only one 9.4 listed, and they were asking $1,840 for that, so that's a little ridiculous, considering where it's been going. There are a bunch of 9.0s listed for around $1,000, which is where basically the 9.4s and 9.2s have been going. So listings are pretty high on this right now. This book is still really hot. My guess is it might cool a little bit between now and the movie or now and the trailer, but this one's definitely been one that has taken off after this movie news and hasn't really slowed down very much. Number 6 on our list is Sonata #1, the Comics Pro Edition. And like that Dark Age book last week that was on the list, this is another book that was out before the book was actually released. So this was a Comics Pro retailer kind of book that you could get your hands on, and the actual first print of Sonata #1 hadn't hit the shelves yet. There was a lot of buzz around this book, and as a result, basically back then, this one was going for $45, and with one sale as high as $80. I've only found one sale since the end of August, sorry, and that was just under $90. Currently, there's one listed for $55, and then everything else is listed for $100 plus, but there's not a lot of copies on there. And I couldn't find any slab sales and no slabs listed for this Comics Pro edition of Sonata #1. With that, we leap into the top 5 of the list, and we're going to make Rob Liefeld very happy with our video today because it is Spider-Man Deadpool number 47, the first Major X. Sorry, Rob. This actually came out before he wants to claim it's the Deadpool 10 and that he had variant covers of and that kind of stuff. But this book actually came out first, and Major X is in it. And the market has said that this is the first appearance. Back then it was going for 25 to 30, whereas that Deadpool book was going for 10. It's still going for 15 to 25, where that Deadpool book's not even going for 10 now. 9.8 which is really interesting because it's going for 15 to 25, and most of the asking prices on raw copies of this are 20 plus. But 9.8 can be had for 60. Really 60 to 80 is where they're consistently going for a 9.8. So 25 for a raw copy plus the slabbing price, or $60 for 9.8. I think there's a little, if you really wanted this, personally, I don't know why you went the first appearance of Major X, but that's just me. Currently, the 9.8 listed starts at 85 and goes up from there. So that is Spider-Man Deadpool number 47, the book that all the collectors are saying is the first appearance of Major X. Number 4 on our list is Stars and Stripe number 0. This is the first Stargirl, and this book was hitting the list because of information around the Stargirl TV series that's supposed to be coming to the DC Universe app. And basically, it hit the list at that point because at WonderCon, they basically showed some costume designs and that kind of stuff. So there was some stuff for the show that was hitting at WonderCon. There was news. Raw copies jumped up to $50. 9.8s were going for $330. Now this book has cooled back off. There hasn't been any real news about the show recently, and we're still a little ways off from it coming out. Raw copies are in the $10 to $30 range, kind of depending on condition. 9.8s are still going for about $200 to $300, so we haven't come back much, but just a little bit. But there have only been 3 slab sales since the beginning of, only 3 9.8 sales since the beginning of July. So hasn't been a lot of movement on the slab copies of this. Asking prices are in that $20 to $30 range, so the upper end of what Raws are going for, or clear up to $60. Like there's a bunch of them that are they're asking $60, but you can get them for $20 to $30, and probably a little cheaper with a little patience. Currently, there's no 9.8 listed on eBay. There is a 9.6 listed for $150, and it's the only slab of this Stars and Stripe number 0 listed at the moment. With that, let's move to number 3 on the list. And first up is Amber Blake number 1, the Nodat 1 in 10 variant. Nodat 1 in 10 variant, sorry. And this was kind of a hot indie book of the moment. It's kind of a bigger than normal size, and it's a cool cover, low print. Back then, this 1 in 10 was going for $40 right off the bat. Since then, there's only been one sale of this cover by itself recently, and it went for $15. But I think that was kind of an oddball. Typically, basically, this book is being paired with copies of number 2 and mostly the 1 in 10 variant of number 2, and they've been going for in that $50-ish, $60-ish range. The pairing of the 2, so a little higher. There's only been one 9.8 sale I could find. It went for $400. It's been a little while, but most of the asking prices on this for single issues or those pairings of 1 and 2 are 80 plus kind of range. But they're not really going for that. They're going, like I said, the pairings of 1 and 2 are going for 50 to 60. And here comes the cat. She hasn't made an appearance yet, so we will. Knew that was coming. And there she goes. So that is Amber Blake, number 1, the 1 in 10 variant. At number 2 on our list is Immortal Hulk, number 16. The Bennett 1 in 25 second print. I have a whole lot of issues with this book. A, why is Marvel doing 1 in 25 incentives of second prints? B, it is the reason behind all these, in my opinion, awful Immortal variants where their faces are changing. Yeah, we won't get into all of that, but it is not my cup of tea, these particular variants. But it was a hot book. This 1 in 25 second print seemed to work. People were going crazy for it. Back then, it was going for $100 plus week of release. Now, it's a $25 to $30 book, which is still pretty good for a 1 in 25. Really good for a second, when you consider it's a second print. So $25 to $30, but nowhere near that $100 plus that the raw copies were going for. 9.8s can be had basically from $40 to $100 is where they're going. Typically it's around $70, but literally there's a bunch of them that went for $40. So why you would pay $25 for raw if you could snag that 9.8 for $40? Not sure why you'd want this cover. Period. That's just me. Currently, like I said, listings are all in that $25 range. 9.8s are currently listed basically 90 plus, but people have been getting deals on those, particularly on auctions. So if you're kind of patient and you like this cover, patience would probably pay off there and just kind of keep shopping around. So that is Immortal Hulk, number 16. I forgot to tell you guys to drink, but he is on the list once again. Then at number 1, this week was Naomi number 1, and this is when the Naomi train really started rolling. It was between when issue 3 and issue 4 came out. Issue 3 was on the list last week, and this book was starting to take off back in the spring. Back then, raw copies of number 1 were up to $40. There weren't really any 9.8s yet. This book would go way higher than that in the coming weeks and months, so it will definitely be on the list again. But now it has settled back, I guess I should say, because it did go higher, but it's settled back to where raw copies are basically still in that $30 to $50 range. So right around the $40 it was going for back in April when it initially spiked. 9/8 are currently going for 130, 160-ish range, so about 150 kind of average, which is way down from where that 9/8 were going back, probably, well, not in April, but in like May. When it hits the list the next couple times, 9/8 are going to be significantly higher than that, so those have come back quite a bit. Listings are right in line with those prices. $30 to $50 for raws and $150 for a 9/8 going up. There's obviously some listed for $200, that kind of thing. But that is kind of where Naomi has settled. I feel like that's a little more realistic price for what we've seen from the character so far. I do think there's a chance that it could take off. I know she's appearing in, I don't know if she's actually appeared in Superman yet, but I know she did appear, either is getting ready to or did just appear her first interaction with Superman. So if they really start using her in the Superman story and they tell a good story there, it might take off a little bit again. But I feel like this is probably a more realistic price than where Naomi got to when it first exploded back in the spring. So with that is this week's list. Like I said, we had a couple of real keys in Avengers 196, the first Taskmaster, and Marvel Special Marvel Edition 15, the Shang-Chi book. We had a couple of hot indies in Sonata and Amber Blake that haven't really fallen off that much. Cool Uncle Scrooge cover, first Stargirl, first Major X, and the Immortal Hulk variant that I'm not a big fan of, but apparently a lot of people are, and Naomi also on the list. So some pretty good books this week. Probably last couple weeks I felt like the list was down, to put it mildly. This week was a little more solid, kind of actual value on the list. So with that, we will catch you next time.